Hi there. So, in this recording, I want to give my opinions on the Delite 25, which is a kind of flagship bike from Reese and Miller. Now, I'm a big fan of Reese and Miller, obviously. They make what I would say is the best bike frames, the best bike systems available right now if you're into e-bikes. I wouldn't say the best bikes because I change all the components immediately almost, but they are pretty good. And so I wanted to talk about their flagship model because obviously I own the Delite GX Roll-Off, which is a different model. So the 25 was supposed to be, and well, I think according to the designers, it's kind of like their dream bike. Uh, Designed exactly what a dream bike is supposed to be. Well, not in my opinion, and I'm gonna sort of talk about some of the kind of design weirdness on this bike. So let's actually go into the whole specification. And this recording is going to be more or less me complaining about some of the really bizarre decisions that bike manufacturers make in terms of components. Because obviously, I mean, you're buying this bike for the frame. You're not buying it for the sort of everything else. And right now, if I was buying the Delite, for example, I would go for the Delite setup that actually gives you just the frame, and it doesn't really matter what the components are because Recent Miller's own upgrades are well, only the dual battery upgrade is really the one that you want to go for, but everything else is kind of you want to do it yourself. Basically, it's a DIY job. But let's talk about the Delite 25. It certainly looks very attractive. The price is €9,700, which is sort of recommended retail price. I think that's what your bike shop will actually charge you, because if they charge you more, they're insane. So in terms of the engine options, we don't really have that many options. Now, you might be a bit surprised that this isn't the Bosch speed motor. This is just the CX motor. Of course, you can turn it into a speed motor within 5 minutes, maybe even less, so it doesn't really matter for me so much. Now, the shifting, so essentially the idea of this bike was that this would be a luxury bike, but in actual fact, luxury is an electronic gear shift, where we have the Shimano Di2 XTR and a kind of a cassette and a derailleur. This is not the definition of luxury. The definition of luxury is, of course, the roll-off hub. That's what you pay €1,000 if you buy it separately, and that is the best that you can get. And I have the bike with the roll-off hub, and I can tell you that I am yet to see anything that is better, because unfortunately, whether you like it or not, this setup with a derailleur has so many points of failure that eventually, well, first of all, you start changing the cassette, because at some point your cassette all gets dirty, and if you don't replace your chain fast enough, then your chain eats the cassette. But then, of course, you get problems with the derailleur, such as the derailleur going out of alignment. And I'm not just talking about the setup of the derailleur itself, but also the little thing that kind of holds it in place. And as you can see, Reese and Miller has removable dropouts. So for the roll-off, you have one set of dropouts, and here you have a longer set for the derailleur. And people have also made their own dropouts, which is also a very good thing, because, well, it's great to be able to correct some of the design faults in recent Miller's bikes. And this is something we're going to talk about as we kind of move along here. So the Shimano XTR Di2 basically means that instead of changing the derailleur gears using the kind of levers on the handlebar, you just press a couple of buttons. And obviously, this is an electronic system that gets powered by the Bosch motor. So the Bosch motor is actually used instead of the battery that typically gets used on the XTR Di2 systems. And even if you had a battery, that's a battery that lasts a very long time, so it's not a problem. The electronic gear shifting doesn't eat up much energy, so it's not such a big deal, to be honest. Now, tires is where things get really weird. So you have a mountain bike with a derailleur, and then you put road tires on it. Now, I know Supermoto X is an excellent tire for just rolling on asphalt and whatnot, but if you were making a city bike where people are just going to ride around and stuff, then why do you have the derailleur? Why not put, in fact, something like a hub? And this is where, once again, I come back to this idea of having a roll-off hub, because that is the definition of luxury. Roll-off is what you would typically put in if you want the best of the best, and money is no object. Now, having a standard kind of derailleur setup, albeit an electric one, is not the definition of luxury. It's a bit banal, to be honest. I mean, I can take one of my e-bikes and just install this stuff myself. There is absolutely no problem in installing the Shimano XTR Di2 post factum if you've got just an ordinary derailleur to begin with. So that is the first thing that is weird, the fact that it's using the Moto X tires. And by the way, it's still using the MD40 rims. Now, on the one hand, I wouldn't really complain too much about the MD40 rims, because they're good rims. I have them and I enjoy them. On the other hand, you can now get 50mm rims, and I think you can even get like 52mm, although that's marginal advantage, but certainly you can get 50mm rims, and those rims would be a bit wider to support the well, especially the sort of making the front wheel bigger and so on. So the thickness of the tires here is 2.8, which is kind of pushing the rear spacing on the Delite, because I have a Delite, so I can tell you that 2.8 is where you're kind of pushing it. 3.0 is where you're really sort of pressing against the sides, and maybe even the chain, because you can see the chain is actually inside the bracket, so it's closer to the wheel. So this is, once again, something that I find particularly weird, that you have this opportunity for a small improvement and you don't take it because you already have that part, you already sourced that component, and you're sort of sticking to it. Certainly 40mm is fine for 2.8, but if you want an even plusher, even more comfortable kind of handling, especially on the front wheel where you can put the boost fork, then that's what you go for. Now, so let's actually open up the specification so we can see what's going on here. So the battery, you get a dual battery. You pay for the upgrade, obviously. That takes the price over 10,000 euro, which I think is mental. I think I paid 7,500 euro for my bike, which I thought was expensive, but this is just, pushing it. But we're going to talk about why this price even exists. So in terms of the suspension, unlike the ordinary Delite, and let me just remind you that the ordinary Delite uses the Suntour Ion, or you can pay for an upgrade, and if you get the upgrade, you get the Fox Performance. So for example, if I go for the Delite GX Roll-Off, just to show you briefly what the upgrade is, it's a bit annoying. So while we're waiting this, it's a bit annoying because what's happening is it's being kind of intentionally obfuscated, I would say, by Reese and Miller. You're going to see it in a second, as soon as this site loads, which taking its time. Yeah, let's not do these pop-ups right now. Okay, so looking at the upgrades, you have this like air suspension upgrade. There is no upgrade, or you get the Fox Float for 540 pounds. It's still sticking to UK here for some reason. Okay, so what you get for an extra 500 pounds is a Fox Performance fork. Now, just to put this into perspective, the original Suntour Ion costs about 400 euros. So if this is, let's say this is 500 euros, so you're basically paying 900 euro for a Fox Performance fork, which doesn't make that much sense. I mean, it's close to maybe it costs that much, but I'm not convinced, to be honest, and I'll talk about this in a moment. So essentially, on the Delite 25, you get the Fox 34 float, and this is kind of the best thing that you can get, except that this is not the I don't think it's the fork that I personally would go for, because I also have a Fox 34. I have a Fox 34 that looks exactly like this, but it's not the fork I would go for. Can you guess why? Well, the reason is that the fork they're using, and it's actually, I don't know if they are they even saying it here somewhere. Let me actually just scroll this up and down. Because this is actually important. So Fox Float Factory Kashima Boost Air 100mm. Now, this does not tell you what kind of fork they're using. once again, they've obfuscated the fact that this is just, it's a 100 mil fork, but there is a very important but. The 100 mil fork is not a boost fork. So it is well, I think I got this wrong. I think I'm getting this backwards now. So this fork is in fact a boost, but it's not plus. Now you're probably confused and you're thinking, well, what on earth are you talking about? So I'm going to show you. So we're going to go into Fox suspension. I'll actually explain what's going on, because you see, Fox does make e-bike specific forks. But those forks are not available in plus size. So they are available in boost, but they're not available in plus size. And in actual fact, just to kind of prove my point regarding the pricing, if I go to, where is it? Here, I think I'm going to show you the actual price of these kind of e-bike specific forks. So if we go into a bike here, and if we look at let's just look at the 34. There's also the 36, which has, well, this is the size of the legs of the fork, so to speak. So the 36 is kind of, I guess, even cooler, but I'm fine with 34. So you can see that we have these e-bike optimized forks, and in the Fox factory setting you have 27.5 and 29. And if you look at this, you can see that, well, here it's 150, but there is there are variations out there. In actual fact, this is where you kind of find out the truth. You see there is 27.5 and then there is 27.5 plus. So if I press this, for example, this severely limits what you can actually have. So the travel is only available in 120 and 140. The 110, or is it the 100 that you see here, isn't available. So you know that you're not getting this kind of fork. Now you cannot. I don't think you can collapse 120 to a 100, so that's not an option. Now, of course, Risa Miller very cleverly tries to hide all of this information from you, and so it kind of tries to obfuscate things. So you do get a very nice fork. The Fox 34 is a fantastic fork. Trust me, I've ridden on it quite a bit. It's really cool. However, the fork that I went for, as you can probably guess, is not just a boost, but this boost thing requires a special hub and whatnot. But what I went for is this. As soon as it clicks, so 27.5 plus. Now, what this does is it gives you even more space. It gives you even more space between the legs of the fork, and so that is the fork to go for. Now, you're probably thinking, well, hold on. If somebody designed an e-bike specific fork, I should go for that. Well, all I can tell you is that the e-bike specific fork is like 200 grams heavier. So it might be more sturdy down below, but really this is just, this is marketing hype. And also I wanted to show you the price, if it's going to actually load. I'm still waiting. So as you can see, if you are after an e-bike specific fork, like in here we're looking at 150 mil, obviously, you're likely to be paying not $1,000 but like 450. And in the case of my boost, 27.5 boost with 120 millimeter travel, I paid $500, I think $525 for my fork. So that is that. Now you have to sort of hunt for them, I suppose, but the point here is that once again it's a lost opportunity. So instead of just going for whatever the most comfortable fork for the end user is, which would be, you can go with 120 instead of 100. It doesn't change the bike geometry that much. They could have gone for 120 plus sized fork, but they didn't, because it's in actual fact, if you buy it brand new with no discounts, it's actually twice as expensive. So there is a significant money saving going on behind the scenes. It's still a fantastic fork. I'm not complaining. I'm just saying that they could have gone for a better one, and that is sort of why I would buy the Delite with a Centaur Ion and then go for the right fork. sort of straight away, because you do want the plus if you can have it. The plus basically means that you can stick a massive tire in there. You can certainly fit in at 3.25 inches, although we don't have any good selections of those. 3.0 will go very easily, and certainly you can try even getting let's say a 3.8 inch tire, because on a 40 mil rim it's going to be about 3.4-inch equivalent, effectively. But let's not digress. So the suspension here, the rear suspension, I have no complaints about. The Fox Float DPS is completely fine. Keep in mind that the space underneath the seat here, there is like a tunnel. This space is rather limited, which means that you will not be able to stick in one of those Cane Creek DB massive shocks in there. The size of the rear shock is 6.5 by 1.5 inches, so that limits your options quite significantly. Luckily, this rear shock, Fox Float DPS, is a good shock, but if you put in something cheaper like a RockShox Monarch, for example, that's going to be, almost equivalent. So I know some of you might want to have the front and rear shocks identical or in similar colors, all of them, Kashima coating and whatnot. But the rear shock is, you can get whatever fits basically. Not so significant. Certainly the cheap OEM shock that comes with the Delite GX Relief is fine by me. I'm perfectly okay with it. So let's continue through the specification. So we talked about the suspension and the fact that even though it's good, it's certainly much better than the options you get on the here with the Fox Performance. This is much better. Now, in terms of lighting, they really missed the boat here, because the Bush & Miller IQ XE is nowhere near as good as the Supernova M99 Pro that you can see here. Let's look at the actual specifications. So somewhere here we should have the light, the Supernova, and just taking time to find it. Here it is. The Supernova M99 Mini Pro is a light that's designed for speed pedelecs, basically. It's kind of like a motorcycle light. It has similar characteristics. That is the premium light. This light is not the premium light. It's also good. It's not the premium light though. And if you want a premium product, I don't understand why you wouldn't put in the best light that's available. Display, once again, Intuvi is fine, and I don't recommend anyone buy the Bosch 9 upgrade. It's simply not worth it. Let's talk about the brakes. So the Shimano XTR, well, these are perfectly fine, I would say. The XTR brakes are perfectly fine, but you can make a superior braking setup if you go a bit crazy. And this is something that I've sort of planned to talk about for a while, and I suppose now is a good time to kind of talk about it. So as you know, the Delite has removable dropouts. You can see the two screws here, and then there is the dropout, so you can unscrew it and stick your own one in. Now the dropout is just a piece of metal that anybody with any kind of lathing experience will actually make for you happily, so there is no problem in this. So what can you do with customizable dropouts? Well, it turns out that you can do a lot. So one of the things that I talked about previously is the engineering fault in designing the Delite. And this, by the way, affects the Delite 25 as well. If you look at the distance between the wheel and the mudguard or the fender, you can see that it's more or less uniform, except it kind of narrows down in this particular point. Now, imagine if you had a mudguard which puts the hole through which the QR goes a bit further away along this axis. This is precisely what you want to do. This is a good thing to do, because if you do this, then what happens is you end up with this problem sorted. So now if you put a thicker tire, it's not going to scratch against the back of the mudguard. Of course, you want to replace the mudguards, because these mudguards are 65 mil. Once again, they're only good for about 2.6, 2.8 inch tires. So not good enough for 3.0, and they get a bit too narrow, and suddenly you want to go with 80 mil or 85 mil perhaps. You can go for, there are lots of options in actual fact. You can go for Chinese carbon fiber. mud guards if you want to be flashy. Okay, so but that's not what I wanted to talk about. There are other things that you can do with the rear dropouts. So on the side of the derailleur, and here we have the derailleur, but let's talk about the roll-off. The roll-off here. So one thing people do is they also make a dropout which also extends down and has a derailleur hanger for roll-off. Now you're probably thinking, well, hold on, we don't have a derailleur. Why on earth would we want this? Now it turns out that many people are actually unhappy with the chain tension on the roll-off, because what happens as you install the chain is, first of all, the chain is very tight. The chain is like, if you put your finger on the top of the chain, you can't press it down, it's so tight. But eventually you stretch it out, and not many people are happy with this arrangement. So what they do is they remove the tension wheel here, which, by the way, it's not so much tension, it's like a guide wheel. And they put the bottom of the chain going down, and then they put a roll-off chain tensioner through the derailleur hanger. So that's why people add the derailleur hanger. So that is the right side of the bike. Now what I wanted to talk about is the left side of the bike. That's certainly a lot more interesting, because on the left side of the bike, what you have is you have a similar dropout. In fact, it's identical because it's roll-off, there's nothing else, except that the dropout also has the brake mount. You can see the brake through here. You certainly can't see the mount, but just trust me, there is a brake mount on the dropout. Now, one thing you could do, which is a bit mental, and it probably you only really need it if you use your Delite to cycle at really high speeds, sort of 40 kph, 50 kph, those kinds of speeds. The one thing that you can do is you can add a secondary attachment, a secondary brake mount. Now you're probably thinking, well, hold on, a secondary brake mount? I don't have two brakes. Well, you can attach two brakes, because you can take a second caliper, you can stick it sort of here in the back, and run a wire throughout the whole bike. Obviously, that's not a particularly difficult thing to do. And then what you can do is you can have a single lever that would actually sort of enable or press against both of these brakes at the same time. So that's what I was talking about in the kind of XTR. I think the XTR is quad piston, I'm not sure, but even with a quad piston brake, if you have two of them, that's certainly a lot better. Now, this isn't a bike that's being used for downhill, so you don't have to worry too much about the brakes overheating and whatnot, but having this extra kind of power is certainly beneficial. I would say it's certainly a very interesting kind of thing to do. So I'm going to show that the whole setup at a later point in time. Meanwhile, we're going to continue discussing the features of the bike, because for a premium product, there are lots of things here which are just arbitrary, basically. Now, some of these I can sort of forgive, some of these I don't understand why they bother. Okay, so what do I think about the seat, for example? So the seat post is a very nice seat post. I think it's thicker. Ordinary seat posts are like 31.8 or 30.9 mil, but this one is, I think it's like 35 or something. It's a very thick seat post, and that's very nice to have. The seat itself is disposable. You really need to buy your own seat. Now, in the case of Recent Miller, if I was doing a premium product, I would put on a nice seat. I would spend the extra $100 and I would put in a nice kind of cruiser seat. And the same goes for the handlebars. These are really uncomfortable. These are the Ergotech XXL, I believe, because I had them on the bike. So I think, yeah. The Ergotech XXL, they have to go. You really want a trekking handlebar in this. The stem here looks weird. I don't recognize the stem in actual fact. Do we have the stem? Synthase Force. Yeah, so on the Delite, you can see that they have a very nice angled Ergotech. So this is a better stem. This is just a better stem. This is you can see it's a screw-on kind of stem. You can see that it's the screws here. So it's a screw-on stem. This is a more complete stem, in the sense that it goes vertical and then kind of it's much better. Basically, it looks better. So I would stick with this stem. Now the handlebars I would obviously replace with something like NC17 tracking or something to that effect. All right. So once again, the pedals are crap. So I don't know why Riesenmüller can't spend another €100 and put in like a Shimano Saint. Well, that's €50. Shimano Saint pedals, for example, they're wonderful and they would look good on this bike. Trust me. So, something like Shimano Saint. They now have varieties which are black, and there are also pedal varieties of Shimano Saint which are in fact €100 or thereabouts. So those are pretty good. So that's what you would need to make a premium bike. Let's talk about these little bottle thingies. Now, this is I forget what it's called. It's not factory. It's actually they probably mention it here. If I do for bottle, go for bottle. Bored with your background, yeah, really. So you essentially get these bottle holders, and special bottles it's called Fabric. So there's this company called Fabric, and they make these bottles with 2 inlets, and these inlets attached to the pins that stick out of the bike. Everything is fine except one thing. When I got these bottles, they smelled atrocious. They smelled of the most cancerous plastic you can think of. It's not something you would actually drink out of. So that was disgusting, and and I went to Fabric's site, and it turns out that they do have a couple of different bottle sizes if you want for this sort of thing. But this idea that you get this cancer-smelling kind of raw plastic poisonous bottle just disgusted me to no end. So that's kind of an afterthought, maybe, or it was an interesting idea, but I'm not buying this idea. I'm not interested in this in any way. It's just not good when you have this crappy quality of bottles. If you had nice bottles made of, I don't know, metal or something really fancy, really kind of cool, then I would love that. But no. So just to sum up, the decisions on this bike are the set of decisions on this bike are completely different to what I would do as somebody who's interested in, and in actual fact manufactures luxury bikes, as it happens to be. So what would I do? First of all, I would give people the option between Bosch CX and Bosch Speed. I would put in nice pedals like Shimano Saint platforms. I would put in a roll-off here, maybe with a chain tensioner, because we know that the ordinary roll-off setup doesn't work. Maybe I would do a roll-off with a belt, although it's interesting, they do it on a New Vinci model, but they don't do it on a roll-off model for some reason. I don't get this, because I mean, if you look at the website for the Delite itself, and we're now going to once again wait for this stupid loading screen. If you look at the actual kind of illustrations here, look, it's a Gates carbon belt. So I don't see why they can't have it on the roll-off. So they have it on the Delite New Vinci models. We can actually click on one of those and look at that, because I mean there shouldn't really be any difference in terms of the the Delite and the but I don't know. Maybe it is the case that the New Vinci kind of is able to handle this, and the roll-off cannot. So here's the setup. You can see once again it's dual suspension, so there should be no problem as the belt kind of it loosens here, and it doesn't change in terms of length here, so everything is fine. In fact, this little thingy is why you'd want the belt in the first place, because if you kind of move it around, then everything is fine. The pivot here, in actual fact, allows the suspension to happen without any changes in the length of the belt being affected here. So I'm surprised that it's available for New Vinci and not available for roll-off. So that's once again, Gates carbon drive is a premium feature, so I would put that in here. Then In terms of tires, I would first of all fix the problem with the distance from the tire here to the fender here. I would install fenders which are wide enough, maybe 80 or 85 millimeter. And in terms of tires, you don't really need smooth tires, because even if you have semi-slick tires, you're going to be just fine. So I would put tires, 3-inch size tires, something with a bit of texture in there to kind of to make the bike look even better. In terms of the the rear rack is fine. Everything is fine. I mean, I can imagine that it would be nice to have more carrying capacity on the rear rack, but really it's fine as is. I suppose they could make it a bit longer, but that would put more strain on the mechanism itself. Yeah, the mud guards I would, like I said, I would replace, make them wider, and also, I don't know, the mud guards are made of plastic. I mean, on a bike that weighs 27 kilos, do you really want to save weight and make the mud guards plastic instead of just going for metal? The answer is obvious. I think you want metal. You want aluminum or whatever they're made out of. I have no idea, to be honest, but I wouldn't cry about the extra weight. So the stem here is fine. I don't like the writing. I think it's a bit too kind of outrageous. I would put it in a nice seat, like the Surface RX Cruiser that I prefer. Dual battery is a must, obviously. If you're buying this kind of bike, why would you not get dual battery? What's wrong with you? In terms of the stem, I would go back to the Ergotech stem. I would put in tracking handlebars instead of this almost horizontal handlebar. One thing I forgot to mention is the grips. So they're using the Ergon grips, which are rubber and they're cheap. I would put in the Ergon leather grips. I have them on some of my bikes and they are wonderful. They are premium. It's a premium product. You want leather on your grips for extra comfort, not this plastic, which can get really dirty. So I would do that. Apart from that, the whole handlebar thing is, yeah, get a comfortable handlebar. You end up doing it yourself anyway. In terms of the light, they got this wrong. This should be a supernova. Now, I'm not sure exactly what they're doing to power the Di2. Maybe the reason why they put in a weaker light is because they had to run one of the 6 volts into the Di2, although you don't need 6 volts, do you? Anyways, I don't know the exact electrical setup here, so maybe they got forced to do this. But personally, I would find a way to power the battery if it had to be a Di2, but I wouldn't do Di2. In terms of the fork, yeah, okay, so you got an e-bike specific fork. Well, congratulations, well done. You went for the simplest option because Fox put it in front of you and it was twice as cheap as getting in a 27.5 plus fork with 120 instead of 100 millimeters. Although you can just ask Forks to produce an OEM part for you, which would be boost and 100 millimeters, or you could go for what's available. So that is a bit of a mistake because obviously you want, if you have a possibility of sticking in a wider tire, why wouldn't you do this? Honestly. And then the whole business with the brakes, they are okay. I might go with something different. I don't know, maybe Shimano Saint or whatever, whatever the top brakes are, the SRAM Guide Ultimate, and the XTR is certainly fine. And with the rear dropout modified, you can have 2 of them on 2 hydro lines going into a switch where you have 2 of them attached to. Well, all of this can be done. Obviously, it's not a problem of engineering. I don't think it's a problem of it's a problem of money, and the problem that you want to somehow present a premium product and charge 10,000 euro for it without putting any premium parts into it, or as few as possible. Certainly the fork is a good fork. It's just not the best fork that you can go for, and the rest goes, the same goes. I mean, if I start really nitpicking on things, if I start talking, for example, about the hub that's being used, pretty sure it's Novatec. Pretty sure the front hub is a Novatec OEM producer. Yeah, you can see that both of them are Novatec. No, just no. This has to be a good hub. This has to be like a DT Swiss or something. Yes, they are expensive, but putting in an OEM part. I mean, seriously, on a bike that costs 10,000 euros, it's just like spitting into the buyer's face almost. It's like, yeah, this is a premium, just buy it, don't ask any questions. I mean, we're lucky that they actually put out this table of different parts, because otherwise we would be in the dark about what kind of stuff they're using. So a boost hub and a quality boost hub that's actually, made by a well-known manufacturer is something that you want to go for. And the same would go for a rear hub. So if they wanted Di2, they could go for one of those Project 3-to-1 hubs, which have this interesting magnetic design with instant engagement, almost instant engagement. Really, really kind of cutting edge stuff that they could go for on a premium product, of course. So to sum things up, this is a very idiosyncratic kind of design. It's not the design that I would do, and it also doesn't have any of the electronic features that are really cool. And I can think of two at least. The first is ABS, which is what Bosch has now produced. I don't know if it's available yet for bike manufacturers, but I'm sure that sooner or later Riese Miller will install it, because it's such a cool feature. And then this changes the whole game in terms of braking, because now you have speed sensors in the wheels, and then you have the brakes which control things like, is the wheel spinning, is the wheel above ground or not, and it applies the same kind of tap 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 that you get in a car. So that would be really cool, because it prevents your brakes from locking, obviously. So that's one thing. The second thing is to do with the roll-off, because I continue to maintain that the roll-off is the premium product here, not New Vinci, not XTR Di2, none of that. Roll-off is the kind of the killer feature here. So if you go for roll-off, you want electronic shifting for roll-off, what's called the E14 system. Once again, I don't know if it's available yet or not. It certainly is available on the website of roll-off as a kind of, advertisement, but I don't know if it's out there yet. So that's one thing that you would want to install on a premium product. So for me, a premium product is where you have a 27.5 plus, you have the Supernova, you have the nice Ergotech stem. Fine, let's keep that stem, but have a nice trekking handlebar. The seat would be something like Surface RX. The pedals would be Shimano Saint. Maybe the brakes would also be Shimano Saint. In terms of the rear chain system, I would have roll-off with maybe a chain tensioner, I don't know. And then, the wider tires, 3-point-inch tires, as well as wider mud guards to support them. So that is my idea of a dream bike, not what the Delite 25 is. So thanks for checking out this overview, and let me know what you think in the comments. Bye.